How's it going, peeps? Welcome back to Viva La Coin. I am Joe. I will be your host for today's episode, and I think, hopefully, after testing it a million different times, that the sound is probably finally not unbearable. So thanks for dealing with me on that. I also did take an extra break away. I didn't do a video on Friday simply because the crypto space in general right now has been incredibly exhausting. As we come to the back half of this white claw pattern, as everyone's pointing out, we have all the reaccumulation, the constant pumps, the constant dumps. Focusing on anything other than what is going on behind the scenes really tends to lead people down the wrong road. And I saw a lot of people that trade or do day-to-day action within the market get completely fucking wrecked because they were trying to base what they anticipated happening on technicals. And when we dropped down to 31K, everyone was super short, saying this is it, we're dropping to 20. No, now we're back up to 39.6, I believe, right now. So until we get a confirmation that we are going to continue to climb, I'm sitting on my hands and just trying to pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes. And ultimately, I have been buying back in a little bit of altcoins here and there. If we dump down to 31K, I'll buy a little bit more. And then if we pop up to 40K and maybe even to 42 here, I'll sell some of it and then try and buy back low if we do dip. But for most of my position, I'm not moving it. And then again, I am not a financial advisor. I am not an oracle, nor am I a fucking wizard. So take that with a grain of salt and do your own research and educate yourself on the crypto space. But right now, big things are happening behind the scenes. And in order to understand whether or not this is the start of a bear market and cryptocurrency is going to tank with the rest of the economy as inflation goes up, or where we're heading, or if it's still important, I'm going to cover just a couple quick pieces of information that I think really encapsulate what's going on behind the scenes to a certain extent. And as we move forward through the rest of June, I think that if we are going to see things unfold the way that these accumulation patterns are going, we're going to get that continuation of this bull run within probably the next month, in my opinion. Probably by mid-July, with Ethereum's EIP 1559 and everything else being updated for blockchains like Cardano, Polkadot, Bitcoin with Taproot, which again I'm going to make a separate video on. So if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer anything that you want to talk about or that you may want to ask. And let me try and minimize myself here. I don't know why. There we go. So let's just jump into a couple of these stories here. Now, the first thing I did just want to point out is whenever I'm looking at the Bitcoin chart right on the minutes, you can see even earlier today, you have these massive green minutes where people are buying almost 1,000 Bitcoin per minute. And then you'll have these big red candles as well, just in a single minute as they're pushing the price up and down and trying to accumulate as much as possible. Now that El Salvador has not only said that they were going to make Bitcoin legal tender within their country, but they actually put forth the bill and it was approved. This is absolutely massive for the entire crypto space and what that means for the rest of the countries that are looking to get into Bitcoin. And we saw as well, outside of El Salvador, Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Panama all show interest in moving into crypto. And there are several different reasons for that, which I'll go into, and also some of the fear and bullshit and FUD that's being put out there. But I just want to point out that all of the exchanges in the Bitcoin reserves that they have, the reserves are starting to drop again. So it did go up a little bit towards the back part of this dump, and this is on Crypto Quant. I don't have a full subscription, but this was one that was available. So you can see there were only 2.8 million Bitcoin available across all exchanges come August 1st of 2020. Over the course of the bull run, starting off, we hit a pretty low point around like 2.4 million and stayed around that and traded as we climbed in this uptrend into the back end of 2020, going into 2021. Well, as everything started to dump off, you saw that there were about 1 million Bitcoin that were sold and put back onto the exchange. Or not 1 million, 100,000. So it went from about 2.4 to 2.5 million, again, that are available on just the exchanges. Now that number looks like it's about to reverse and start dropping again, which would mean that we would start climbing again as far as the price goes, because the price of Bitcoin is what people are willing to pay for it on the exchanges. As far as scarcity and supply and demand goes, that's what's going to drive it. So as people get over this previous dump, we should be able to see prices slowly start to correct. Now, for the actual issues going on with El Salvador, they were talking about what countries are going to follow them. And we were breaking down all of these different individuals, whether it's people from Panama, people from Paraguay, talking about following them. They want to also make Bitcoin part of their legal tender. And this has to do for a couple different reasons, but the main driver is the fact that their native currencies, or the ones that they use, have been absolutely ravaged over the course of the last years. And a lot of those countries are suffering from hyperinflation. I mentioned El Salvador alone. They actually have some of their population coming into the United States, about 2.2 million people. And they send money home to El Salvador. And that can amount to billions of dollars that's being sent. And also, they have to pay 20% fees and remittances, which is just transferring that money from the United States over to El Salvador. Well, with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, as it is permissionless and there is no middleman, aside from the fee that they would pay in order to send it, which could be significantly cheaper if they use the Lightning Network as that's established and put into place, they'll be able to do that in a much more affordable manner. And a lot of these countries, they want to restabilize their economies instead of just burning money in the streets because it's more valuable as a dumpster fire. So just wanted to point that out, but simultaneously you have people coming out in the news and it's kind of negating what everyone else is saying. And I'm only going to point out one person in particular, although you could go into a bunch of different directions with who's talking shit. And that's going to be Elizabeth Warren. So Elizabeth Warren comes out with this video as if she is a cryptocurrency professor, or she understands it or actually creates it, and she isn't. But she came out, and in the video, she said the crypto world currently has no consumer protection, which, if any of this sounds ironic because we don't have a lot of protection or other people looking out for us in the traditional financial world, then don't worry, you're not crazy. But yeah, there's no consumer protection. As a result, honest investors and people trying to put aside some savings are at the mercy of fraudsters. Unlike all the banks and everyone that almost fucked the entire global economy back in the housing bubble in 2008, but I'll set that to the side too. She added that crypto has become a haven for illegal activity. Based on what? Because we saw in the metrics that they broke down on what Bitcoin was used for, because the blockchain is transparent, that only about 1% of it in total was used for illicit activity. So 1%. And I can guarantee you the US dollar is worse than that. So, okay, good call. But echoing concerns about the role of Bitcoin and other cryptos and how they play into cyber attacks, like the one on the Colonial Pipeline system. Warren also suggested that she's worried about the environmental damage and the energy consumption from digital mining cryptocurrencies could cause. So in this super condescending bullshit interview that she probably could have saved the environment, the CO2 she exhaled with the stupid sentiment that she had, they covered a series of different false accusations that people have brought forth about Bitcoin and crypto. And I'm just going to touch on those briefly. So she was asking this professional, whoever she was talking to, just probably almost borderline paid actors at this point. Is there a way that we could make a central bank digital currency and it could use almost no energy and it could already be set up? They're like, yeah, Elizabeth Warren, sure you could. Well, no fucking shit. Money's pretty much already digital at this point anyway. We all use credit cards. We all pay for things online. It being digital isn't a fucking problem. Them owning the entire system, making unlimited amount of it, keeping most of it, and then charging us the fucking interest is the problem. Keeping people from participating in those systems is the problem. Shutting down people's bank accounts is the problem. Not providing financial, access to people because they have a bad credit score because a system that is $30 trillion in debt fucked them over is the problem. And that's just in the U.S. You have all these other countries like El Salvador, where their population, 70% of them can't even access banking, let alone get the money that their family's sending home because they're getting absolutely crushed with remittance fees. So this is so off base. In the United States alone, someone broke down like the total kilowatts. We use more electricity on fucking Christmas lights than a permissionless global instant settlement payment system that can't be shut down. So think about that the next time someone tells you about the environment. But hey, don't worry, because the president of El Salvador has a solution. So I've just instructed the president of LAGOSV, which is their state-owned geothermal electric company, to put a plan in that offers our facilities for Bitcoin mining with very cheap, 100% clean, 100% renewable, zero emissions energy from our volcanoes. This is going to evolve fast. People that say it's an environmental hazard do not understand that people are actually incentivized to use renewable resources. The greatest cost of mining Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general are the fucking electric costs. So people will go to any length in order to do it in a renewable or cheaper way, and 75% of the entire network is actually handled with renewable energy. Now, yeah, you still have certain areas that do coal power stuff and use natural gas or fucking whatever they're driving their engines with in those mining rigs. But you also have to think that mining for gold, like physical fucking gold, that the likes of JP Morgan just got sued $1 billion last year for manipulating the price of, keep in mind. We burn far more energy and do more damage to the environment digging up fucking gold every year. In the traditional financial system that is directly rigged to impact people, the worst at the bottom, the best at the top, and create cave-shaped recoveries that people can't get out of. That is a direct, great absorber of energy, well beyond Bitcoin. I know I showed that chart of the total breakdown of the whole banking infrastructure, but it's like, it's completely off base and hypocritical, especially when people are taking steps in order to put these things in place. And I'm going to come back to this in a second because people wanted to talk to the president of El Salvador, and they are not our friends, but I'll point out who they are. But let's talk about the fraud accusations. So if you know about the Colonial Pipeline and you're not from the U.S. and you haven't heard about it, so someone hacked into one of our major gas pipelines. And everyone was panicking because they're like, oh, there's a gas shortage, thanks Biden, as if President Biden has anything to do with the absolute stupid fucking shit show that we find ourselves in. But in any case, they got paid in cryptocurrency, and people blame Bitcoin for this whole thing unraveling because they're going to stick their teeth into anything that they think that they can push negatively towards crypto, because that's the only way they're going to be able to buy it, because they are buying it. Now that countries are buying it, every banking infrastructure is buying it, their clients are having access to it, and you're sitting at home wondering, oh, well, when's it going to be safe? Oh, well, when you're too poor to afford it. So go ahead, write that date down on your calendar. So the FBI likely exploited a sloppy password storage to seize Colonial Pipeline Bitcoin ransom. So we actually were able to track where that Bitcoin was sent because the blockchain is transparent. And people have pointed out that despite popular belief, blockchain and Bitcoin is a very bad place to commit crime because all the movement of all that information is public to a certain extent. Now, the wallet address will still have anonymity, but if you can find wherever that wallet address is, then you can go and try and find that person. Now, people were saying, oh, Bitcoin it's been attacked and the FBI can freeze your wallet and hack in. No, they can't. So the FBI's breach of a Bitcoin wallet held by cyber criminals who attacked the Colonial Pipeline is all about sloppy storage and not a reflection of the security vulnerability in the cryptocurrency. So if I have my cryptocurrency on a hard wallet or something and I just write my private keys, all my sign-in data on a fucking Post-it note and leave it in downtown, just on the side of the road, someone's probably going to go in and hack into my stuff and take it. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin isn't secure. That means that I'm an idiot. So if anyone brings that up to you, don't worry. The FBI can't break in or hack into any of this stuff. But if we want to talk about who had the biggest problem with El Salvador's decision, that would be the IMF. So that is the International Monetary Fund, and I've spoke about them plenty of times. Their main solution back in February to keep the economy afloat was for all countries to print as much currency as they absolutely could. So if you really want to thank anyone for any of the problems that we're having, you could probably just write them in a nice, worded email. But they want to go down and talk to him. And I imagine that conversation would go something like, what the fuck are you doing? Because this throws off all of their plans in order to try and accrue more Bitcoin, to try and get into crypto, to try and prevent people from establishing a foothold in it, to try and push these bullshit central bank digital currencies. Now it's making it legal for people to use. It is making it, if you're in El Salvador, you do not pay capital gains tax on it because it is now a legal tender. They will price their things in Satoshis, and within 90 days, businesses will have to at least accept it if someone wants to pay with it, as it is a legal tender. So when it comes down to it, the IMF is livid. And I'm imagining all the main powers of the world that aren't established in this yet are fucking pissed. So they want to go down and meet with him. Now, as far as the IMF goes, they're saying, and I quote, adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender raises a number of macroeconomic, financial, and legal issues that require very careful analysis. So we are following the developments closely and will continue our consultation with authorities. Crypto assets can pose significant risks, and effective regulatory measures are very important when dealing with them. Let me translate this for you. Poor people are bad for business. That's it. They just could have said that. Poor, insufficient people are great for business. Poor people, if they get their feet under them, poor people becoming educated, becoming self-sufficient is bad for business. That's what it should say. It drives me insane. I can't tell you how much that they are trying to rig the systems against people and the resources they have access to. And yet they're going to say that they need to stop it at all costs to protect you, when I have heard nothing but stories from everyone I know on the front lines of society over the last 18 months of how they never got the assistance that they needed, or they lost their job, or filing for unemployment didn't work, or they know someone that got evicted, or they just paid $50,000 more for the offer they put down on a house. And that's just in our country, let alone all these other countries where people don't even have access to the banking system and they can't even use their native currency, and yet you're going to put this in place to protect us. And what's funny is that Christine Lagarde, who is the European Central Bank's president, came out and reaffirmed that the crypto policy as Bitcoin becomes legal tender in El Salvador is not going to change. This certainly does not change our approach to crypto assets and regulation, supervision, and proper classification that they should be under to avoid misinformation and misleading representations. So Christine Lagarde, not a fan of Bitcoin or crypto. She said they're used to perpetuate funny business, was the terminology that she used. Now, the funny thing about her, if you actually look her up on LinkedIn and you can see, what her background was in, for her, we actually see that she was the managing director of the IMF from July 2011 to September 2019. So let's look at Christine Lagarde and let's see how that stint of time went with her. Oh shit, actually during her time, she was actually looking to go to prison for negligence when she was doing fraudulent shit and paying out taxpayers' money to wealthy businessmen. These are the type of people that will tell you that they're trying to protect you by blocking everything else and shutting it down so that you don't have access to it and they do. And I'm here to say that is entirely fucking pointless for them to even try. We have this information. People are going to continue to push it. And eventually it's all going to come to light. When all of blockchain is public and they all have to participate, who exactly the biggest scumbags on earth are. But I can tell you she's one of them. Now, as far as the last two stories I wanted to touch base on super quick, just to show you that this is going to be adoption in hyperspeed. Not just all of the countries down in South America. Lebanon just came out. Their currency is now devalued 90% compared to the US dollar. We've already had currency collapses this year in Turkey. South Korea, they were already paying far more per Bitcoin than anywhere else currently. And when it comes down to Texas, let's look at Texas in the US. We already had crypto mining stuff cleared in Kentucky, and we've already had other states like Florida and their mayor pushing, Mayor Juarez, I believe, pushing to become a hub for cryptocurrency. Well, now Texas regulators allow state-chartered banks to hold Bitcoin. And this is in order to get cryptocurrency in front of their wealthy clients. So a state regulator has officially affirmed that the Texas state-chartered banks are allowed to store cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin for their customers. The Texas Department of Banking, a state regulatory agency chartering state banks and supervising financial officials, issued that notice on Thursday stating that they could provide crypto services in the entire state of Texas, and they may provide customers with virtual currency custody services so long that the bank has adequate protocols in place to effectively manage the risk to comply with applicable law. So, 3 quick points. 1, in order to custody it or sell it to you, they have to own it. The banks will buy crypto, therefore diminishing the reply. Secondly, following the normal applicable law, the laws are all over the place and we don't have any real clarity in the United States, especially when it comes around ETFs. So if you want to take your chances and leave them with them, then you're playing with fucking fire. And then third, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is about being your own bank. Going to these people to pay a fee for them to custody something that was designed to custody yourself, to eliminate them like fucking pulling leeches off your body, I would self-custody. I would learn how to do that. You can go back, watch my videos. There are people that go really in depth on how to buy crypto and store it offline in cold wallets or in software wallets. We do not need these banks. And then over in Africa, another country just pushing, Tanzania's president urges central banks to prepare for crypto. We already know that Bitcoin, whether it was in countries like Nigeria that tried to ban it, now they're saying, oh, it might be available. Or you have Ethiopia that's pairing up with Cardano, as well with Tanzania and Georgia and all these other countries over there. And even India, directly over to the east of there, now saying that they may put in groundwork for crypto. All these dominoes are going to continue to fall, but the president basically said they should be ready for changes and not caught unprepared. And people are like, what do you mean? We could stop it if we want. No, you fucking can't. And the more that you drag your feet, the worse it's going to be. I know that throughout the nation, they have not accepted or started using these routes. However, my call to the central bank is that you should start working on that development. And that is in reference to putting in the groundwork for cryptocurrency and utilizing those payments. So aside from those pieces of news, there's not like anything I'm going to come on and just say like, oh, here's where the price is. Because the price is exactly where they want it to be. Because they're accumulating right now when they're waiting for people to panic or get bored or get, much like myself, completely and utterly exhausted with this price movement that just doesn't make sense. My message to you is that when you understand what these large governing bodies do, and they all know each other, they all work for or with each other, and they're not looking out for you. Every time you see an article and they're saying, oh, we got to, make sure that we're looking out for our customers at the bank, they don't give a fuck about you or your well-being. They care about making money and making money off of you. So at the end of the day, please educate yourself. Do your research on all of this. Remember, this is just educational and trying to highlight what's going on in the space. Aside from that, any comments or questions, please leave them down below. I am honored that you came back to watch me on this episode of Viva La Coin. I apologize for the gap since the last video. It's just been a lot of stagnation in the market, and I'm trying to wait and see how everything develops over the next week. But I greatly appreciate you, and I will catch you guys next time.